An individual's characteristic pattern of emotion, behavior, and thought make up his or her personality. A normative personality allows an individual to adapt to the demands of life. However, sometimes people's personalities are abnormal in that they hinder the individual's ability to function in daily life. His or her personality may be unusual or cause significant distress to his or herself or others. The subfield of psychology that studies individual differences in emotion, behavior, and thought is called personality psychology. This subfield often treats personality as a series of dimensions, collecting quantitative data through various research methods. Quantitative data is numerical. For instance, the number of pages in a book are quantitative and can be ordered on a spectrum from least to greatest. Clinical psychology is a subfield which studies and treats abnormal or disordered personalities, among other issues. Personality disorders are, historically, viewed as qualitatively different from normal personality. Qualitative data is categorical. Just like apples and oranges, literary genres cannot be placed on a spectrum. Right now, the most popular theory of normative personality is the Big Five. The Big Five theory of personality includes 5 encompassing traits, the first of which is openness to experience. People high in openness to experience are more likely to believe in UFOs, the supernatural, and astrology. They are often politically liberal and have an appreciation for nature, art, and recreational drugs. People high in openness to experience seem highly intelligent, even if they aren't. A person high in conscientiousness is dutiful, organized, rule-abiding, and careful. They're a person who avoids risky behavior in general. The conscientious individual makes a great employee, a person who won't show up late and call in all the time. However, their conforming nature can be a weakness. It's not always a good thing to obey authority. Extroverts are easy to spot. Just look for a group of loud, bubbly people. People high in extroversion are more likely to be popular and physically attractive than introverted individuals. It's no wonder that extroversion predicts happiness and high social status. Agreeable individuals are communal in that they are altruistic, cooperative, and humorous. They are more likely to be involved in religious activities. Agreeable individuals have a positive outlook, which allows them to describe others in more positive terms and to be more trusting than people low in agreeableness. Finally, we have neuroticism. It is more advantageous to score low on this trait than it is for the other 4 factors. Neurotic individuals have difficulty managing their stress and in feeling socially accepted. Neuroticism predicts unhappiness, psychopathology, and even poor physical health. Traditionally, the Big Five is not applied to abnormal personality. Instead, the APA offers the DSM, which provides a comprehensive list of personality disorder profiles. Cluster A includes the odd and eccentric personality types. Now let's consider the characteristic patterns of emotion, behavior, and thoughts of a person with schizotypal personality disorder. These individuals feel suspicious of others, so they often feel discomfort in interpersonal relationships. They engage in odd behavior, speech, and dress. For example, they may look unkempt. They hold magical, superstitious, and paranoid beliefs. To be diagnosed, they must meet 5 of 9 criteria listed in the DSM. Cluster B is made up of the dramatic and erratic personality disorders. Antisocial individuals lack empathy and feel a disregard for the rights of others, often holding them in contempt. At best, their behavior is irresponsible, and at worst, it is criminal. Irrationally, they believe that others are either as aggressive as them or somehow deserving of their aggression. To be diagnosed, an individual must have an adolescent history of antisocial behavior and evidence 3 of 7 criteria. Cluster C personality disorders are characteristically anxious and fearful. Individuals with avoidant personality disorder are preoccupied by feelings of inferiority, fears of rejection, and embarrassment. As such, they may shy away from social interactions, choosing to stay at home, where they may fantasize about what it would be like to have a fulfilling social life. Avoidant individuals expect the worst from life. To meet the diagnosis, an individual must meet 4 of 7 criteria listed in the DSM. Perhaps the greatest strength of the Big Five theory of personality is its scientific background. The lexical hypothesis states that a language will have more terminology for concepts that are actually significant. With this in mind, researchers sought commonly occurring traits across a variety of languages. Now, the Big Five is hailed as one of the least culturally biased measures of personality. This is an incredible feat in personality research because our personalities are, in part, molded by our environments. Another strength is that each trait maps onto a bell curve, meaning that Big Five measures don't just tell you which traits you have, they tell you how far you skew to one side or the other as compared to everyone else. However, the theory is not without faults. Researchers once believed that the Big Five traits were orthogonal, and that someone's score on one trait would not predict their score on another. This is not the case, however. Extroversion and openness often correlate, and neuroticism, agreeableness, and conscientiousness do as well. Also, it is unlikely that 5 traits, however broad they may be, could completely encompass an individual's personality. The DSM's approach lacks a consistent underlying theory. As expected, this causes a few problems. Most people who qualify for one disorder actually qualify for several, implying that the DSM's method lacks discriminant validity. Since the DSM-5's publication in 2013, several personality disorders have been found to be incoherent, including schizoid, histrionic, dependent, and paranoid. Also, the categorical approach does not consider the severity of symptoms, only the presence of symptoms. This could lead to both the under- and overdiagnosis of a given disorder. However, some of the typologies listed in the DSM really hit the nail on the head. For instance, antisocial personality disorder is much more common in the prison population than in the general population. This is theoretically consistent. The APA has taken a tentative step toward a dimensional approach to personality disorders by providing an alternative model at the back of the DSM-5. There, maladaptive personality traits are conceptualized as extreme variants of the Big Five, and the model also considers the degree of impairment in functioning. Of course, no one would want to do away with all aspects of the previous approach, so some things remain the same. Clients can still be diagnosed with schizotypal, borderline, narcissistic, antisocial, obsessive-compulsive, and avoidant personality disorders if they meet a given set of criteria on top of having a disordered trait. The DSM-5 traits, or the bad 5, as some psychologists call them, negatively correlate with each of the Big Five traits except for psychoticism, which has a positive relationship with openness to experience. Each trait is set so that the disorder appears on the negative end of the spectrum, so neuroticism has been reversed to emotional stability. The alternative model has been under intense scientific scrutiny since the DSM-5 was released in 2013. Skeptics worried that this new approach would be too difficult to utilize in clinical settings, but Mori and Skodal indicated that the alternative model performed as good, if not better, than the old approach in all aspects except one: professional communication. Next, the alternative model's associated personality measure, the PID-5, is more reliable than the one used in the old model, according to a 2016 study. At first, researchers were unsure if psychoticism would correspond with any of the Big Five personality traits, but research has indicated that it does, meaning that the alternative model is highly consistent with the already existing Big Five model of personality, integrating both normative and abnormal personality under one scope. Finally, in 2019, Suzuki et al. Found that the alternative model is sex invariant, meaning that it lacks gender bias. However, one important issue remains. The alternative model, as it stands now, is also lacking in discriminant validity. The measurement provided for personality dysfunction cannot distinguish between dysfunction caused by something like depression or if the dysfunction is actually stemming from the personality itself. Also, certain traits which predict specific personality disorders are not included in its diagnostic criteria. For instance, all 3 subfacets of psychoticism highly predict antisocial personality disorder, but none of these are included in its diagnostic criteria. In my opinion, one aspect of the alternative model seems highly counterintuitive. The model posits that abnormality lies at one end of the spectrum and not at both extremes. I would like to see if this assumption would hold up empirically. Rationally speaking, an extreme positive variant of a big 5 trait sounds like it would be maladaptive as well. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.